In yet another move towards de-dollarization around the world, we are now seeing Ghana taking that step as they announced a gold for oil scheme trying to stop the hyperinflation that their currency has been experiencing this year. Now, obviously, Ghana in the whole scheme of the global financial system is not at the top of the pecking order, but over the last year and 2 years, we've seen more and more examples of small, insignificant countries making little moves just like this. And so the question is not whether this move by itself is going to be significant in global geopolitics and the global financial system, the economy, the dollar's role in international trade. What matters is how many straws are being piled up on the camel's back. It reminds me of that comic image where there are a bunch of people standing on a ledge on a board with a politician standing out on the very end. People don't know their true power. If everybody just gets off and walks away, there is no power. The people that are following along blindly are what give the people in power their power. And it's the exact same thing with the dollar's role as the dominant currency used for international trade. The only thing keeping it in that spot is the very thing that people are using it. If countries and individuals and businesses just stop using it, then all of the power associated with that and the ability to use that will go away. Have you ever wished that you could earn real gold and silver by spending your fiat trash? Well, now you can with the new Bullion card from APMEX and One Gold. The Bullion card is the industry's first precious metals reward credit card. This is very different than all those debit cards out there that force you to violate Gresham's law by stacking gold and silver, then selling it in order to spend more fiat. The Bullion card is different. It is a credit card that you use just like any other credit card. It allows you to spend your fiat, meanwhile earning gold and silver. On all purchases, you earn 1% back in gold and silver. If you apply through APMEX, these store up in points you can use to purchase gold and silver. And if you apply through One Gold, it allows you to automatically convert those points into segregated, allocated gold and silver, and then at any time request physical delivery through APMEX. This card has no annual fee, an introductory 0% APR, and your points never expire. This card is a game changer because it allows you to spend the fiat currency you are already going to be spending anyway, just as you were going to, and instead of stacking up those airline miles that you never use, and instead of using those measly points for cash back, no, you get to stack real, sound money, gold and silver, physically in allocated segregated accounts, or use it for purchasing direct physical precious metals from APMEX. And just like any credit card, it comes with many of the benefits that all credit cards offer. Pause here if you'd like to read more. I have both the APMEX version and the One Gold version linked in the description below. Now, Ghana's currency has been no saint this year. In fact, during 2022, Bitcoin.com named it the world's worst performing currency. However, it's not entirely their fault, as the dollar does play a role and does have some of the blame here. By reducing or eliminating the use of US dollars when importing oil products, Ghana will tackle one of the key factors behind its cedi's rapid depreciation. Now, just for a quick primer on why many countries around the world are struggling with their own inflation right now because of the dollar's recent strength. The dollar versus many currencies has become stronger over the last year or so because the Federal Reserve has been tightening relative to other currencies. So that means dollars have become more scarce relative to other currencies. That's a problem when that currency, the dollar, is used for international trade because it means all these countries have to use more of their own currency to get dollars that they have to use to buy the stuff from other countries that they need, mainly things like oil. And so if the country can't ramp up production and exports in order to get more of their own currency or more dollars, what they have to do then is print more of their own currency, which devalues it and makes it even harder to do next time. Because of the effect that the dollar has on international trade, we have seen many examples of countries pushing for de-dollarization, especially especially the countries that are most vulnerable or most at risk to getting cut off from the dollar. A lot of these countries are BRICS nations and a few others. So we've got Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, China. We've also seen Saudi Arabia talking about this, Turkey talking about this, and a few other countries saying that they would like to develop an international currency, let's say similar to the euro, but one that is backed by commodities like oil and gold. Now, what Ghana is talking about here is not this, but it's got a similar idea, at least locally, because Ghana plans to buy oil products using gold. This gold for oil scheme would help stop further dwindling of the country's foreign exchange reserves. Now, you're probably thinking that if a country is in this type of situation, then they probably don't have a lot of gold. So the question is, where are they going to get this gold? And that's where it gets a little sketchy. Apparently, large-scale gold mining companies will be required to sell 20% of all refined gold at their refineries to the Bank of Ghana, because gold confiscation always turns out well for countries. And yes, it still counts as confiscation, even though they say they're going to pay for it. Remember what FDR did in the 30s? He said, hey, I'm going to pay everybody for their gold, but legally you do have to give it to me, and I'm going to pay you $21 an ounce. Guess what he did once he had all the gold? He declared that it was more valuable to $35 an ounce. That's theft. And payment for this gold will be made using the local currency and will be made at spot price. So basically the government is planning on printing currency and then sourcing gold from miners that are pulling gold out of the ground in their country, and then using their currency that they printed to pay for that gold, and then using that gold to buy oil. Now, if you're doing any math here, you might see here that they'll probably run into a very similar situation here where they're printing money, even though it's going through gold, in order to buy things that they have to import like oil, which means that just as we explained before, it will still put downward pressure on their currency, which means when this fails, there will very likely be a political push that will probably be supported by at least a small portion of the population to just nationalize the gold industry, since that is something that cannot be printed into oblivion. They can nationalize the gold industry, take all of the gold and then own it themselves, then use it for payments, and that way they wouldn't put any downward pressure on their currency. This is why we see suggestions from people saying the best way to go is to own at least 50% of the gold and also gold refinery, which if implemented would very likely end or at least severely inhibit the amount of gold that's produced in Ghana moving forward. Because if there's one thing that governments are extremely efficient at, it's making things less efficient. But at the end of the day, this is just one more little tiny signal, one more little tiny straw on the camel's back of countries recognizing there is a struggle for global commerce since we are forced to use the dollar, and things would be a lot easier for many countries if nobody wanted to use dollars anymore. So this by itself is most likely meaningless and will not push the needle in any significant direction. But how many of these are necessary before the rest of the world wakes up and realizes we don't need this anymore? Let's use something that benefits us a little bit more. As always, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.